what I'll be talking about is a general approach that you can use on yourself or also on other posture movement breathing therapeutic modalities, maybe an exercise trainer, a personal trainer, a massage therapist, a yoga teacher, etc. Maybe you can also suggest some of these things on other people. I'm not giving things where you have to manipulate or adjust things. So if you are showing these sort of things to other people, always begin with the idea that don't do anything that feels uncomfortable. And you don't need to touch anyone for these things. You just do it by yourself. So what I'll start with is just a little bit about what can go wrong with the back. I'm mainly going to talk about the lower back because that's the one that's the most common problem. So when I'm talking about the lower back, I'm talking about the region that is basically from around the base of the sacrum, around the tailbone, and to just the region underneath the lower ribs. That's the bit that tends to get most painful. And of that region, the two parts or three parts which tend to have the most problems are the lumbosacral joint, which is the joint which joins the lumbar spine, which is the part of the spine below the rib cage and above the sacrum. And that goes to just below the top of the hips. And it joins onto the sacrum, which is the fused part of the spine, which is between the two hips. And that lumbosacral joint, which is below the level of the top of the hips, is a very common source of lower back pain. Another common source of lower back pain is the lumbosacral joints. And I'll take my shirt off so you can see a little bit. I think that when you're doing things where you're showing what's going on in the physical body, it helps if you have as little clothes as possible. It's not that I always run around with no clothes. So on my body, you can see I'm touching the top of my hips now. And then the line between the top of the hips, that's equivalent to L4, L5, lumbar vertebrae 4, joining onto lumbar vertebrae 5. The lumbar spine usually has 5 lumbar vertebrae, and those 5 lumbar vertebrae is going to be the one after that will join onto the sacrum. The two most common sources of pain in the lower back tend to be the lumbosacral joint, which is between the top of the hips, and the line between the top of the hips is L4, L5. The lumbosacral joint is about 2 centimeters below that. So if you'd like to participate physically in this practice, then touch the top of your hips, feel the line between the top of the hips, that point of the spine, that's your L4, L5, lumbar 4, lumbar 5. Go down 2 centimeters, and that region there is L5, S1. That's a common source of lower back pain. Then the other common source of back pain is the sacroiliac joint. If you touch on either side of the buttocks, those buttocks represent the outer muscular portion of your hips, and the hips are called they're called pelvis, but the top of the hips is called the iliac bone. And so the junction between the sacrum and the iliac, or crest of the hips, is called the sacroiliac joint, and that's where my hands are running up and down now. On either side of the sacrum is a common source of lower back pain, the sacroiliac joints, and then just above the sacrum, the lumbosacral joint, just below the level of the top of the hips, is another common source of pain. The two most common reasons why you're going to get pain in your lower back will be spinal compression, where the vertebral segments all just impact on top of each other. And it's not so much the actual pressure of the vertebrae against each other that causes a problem. More likely, it's the vertebrae impinging or pinching nerves. And if a nerve gets a bit squashed, that will generate pain. And sometimes the pain as a result of lower back compression will manifest in your legs. And often that means then there's no pain at all in your back. You've just got shooting pain down the back of the legs. So when you get lower back pain, it can either be through spinal compression. And another reason that it can come as pain is muscular overtension. So if you feel your lower back right now, just take the fingers on either side of the lumbar spine and feel the muscles there And then notice if they're soft or hard. If those muscles are hard, then that tension may be actually compressing nerves. And one of the things that makes it worse will be to actually activate or tighten your abdomen. So one of the things that can release lower back pain is relaxing your abdomen. Now, this is a big point of contention because a lot of people, a lot of therapists, a lot of practitioners of exercise will tell you it's really important to engage your core. Now, the idea of engaging the core has been grossly misunderstood. So when we talk about engaging the core, it doesn't necessarily mean tighten the core. What you really want to do is move from your core. Now, your core is between your navel and the pubic bone, inside. Your navel is between the top of the hips and the tailbone, inside, from around L5-S1, where the source of a lot of that pain is. In fact, the core is between the diaphragm, below the level of the ribs, and the pelvic floor. It's right inside. So I'm going to talk tonight about what it means to move from your core rather than locking your core. So to move from the core means if you're moving your legs, you want to lift the pubic bone or move the pubic bone in the direction that the legs want to go first. If you're moving your arms in a particular direction, it's your navel you want to move in that direction first. So what we want is not to lock the core so much, but rather to engage the core in a way where you move from the core. Now, when you actually tighten your abdomen, which is obviously something that is important to do sometimes, you must still be able to breathe into the abdomen. There are two main ways you can tighten your abdomen. One of those ways will allow you to breathe naturally into the abdomen, and that also tends to help lower back problems. Another way is a way which can minimize back pain if you're about to do something dangerous, but will cause a lot of stress and in a lot of cases causes back pain to get worse. And that's the way where you actually tighten the abdomen in a way which causes an inability for the spine to move and also an inability for the spine, for the core to breathe and act normally. What I'd like you to feel just before we start is a natural breath. Take one hand on the chest and one hand on the lower abdomen, and my recommendation is you face me throughout this practice. So stand with your legs hip-width apart, face towards me. I'll turn slightly sideways sometimes so you can see what I'm doing. Stand if you can with the knees slightly bent and drop the sitting bones down. If you can't stand at any stage, then I recommend just sitting on a chair. You'll get some of the good effects of this practice by sitting on a chair, but if you can stand, at least occasionally, it usually works a little bit better. So if you stand with your knees a little bit bent, let your sitting bones, the ischial tuberosities, drop down like a weight on a string, which is your spine, and just let it lengthen the lower back. Then lengthen your fingertips and relax. If you're to relax fully, I want you to focus on 6 places. One is your fingertips. Lengthen the tips of your fingers and check they can move. 2 is move your shoulder blades wider apart and check the shoulders can gently, freely move. 3 is lengthen your neck and check the neck is free to move. 4 is relax your pelvic floor as much as you comfortably can and check that the hips can comfortably move. And number 5 is lengthen the lower back and check you can breathe into the abdomen like I'm about to do now. So notice my abdomen is swelling and expanding. Now this may look ugly, but actually it's a very good thing to do to release lower back pain. Now, I want you just to feel this gently, but some of the things I'm going to get you to do tonight will not be appropriate for you if you've got extreme lower back pain. If you've got extreme lower back pain right now, be exceptionally careful when I say try this and it might not feel so good. Then you'll know what to do in terms of doing something opposite to this. Okay, so sometimes the best way of learning is to find out what is not good and then you do the opposite, make it good. Because there is no one thing which is best for everyone. So sometimes it's best to try everything, but gently. So what I'd like you to feel is how tense is your lower back? For most people, it's quite hard. Can you relax those muscles? To relax those muscles, what's important to do is to relax the abdomen in a way where you can breathe into the abdomen. Now, if you feel your abdomen, make it as soft as you can. So what I do is I take my fingers and push it into my lower abdomen. That finger pressing in the abdomen can release lower back pain. So what you can do is touch your thumb against the lower back and your fingers into the abdomen and just gently massage it. See if that feels good. It certainly feels good for the internal organs. It can relieve a lot of internal organ stress. But while your fingers are inside the abdomen, breathe into the abdomen. And then use the fingers to push the air out. This can help release a lot of abdominal muscles, internal organs, and the abdominal muscles join onto your lower back muscles. So if you can release your abdomen, your back releases as well. The thing is, every muscle in the body actually joins onto every other muscle. And if you tighten one muscle, it tends to make all the muscles that join onto it also tight. So what we don't want to do is inadvertently tighten the types of abdominal muscles which join onto the lower back. There are two sets of abdominal muscles, one called external oblique, which run like my fingers going from the front of the abdomen all the way to the back, and internal oblique, which run diagonally, also going from the front to the back. If you tighten those muscles, your back will tighten. I just want you to sort of feel what your back feels like. So before we do anything to affect the back, you want to check first a type of assessment. How's your back feeling right now? One of the simplest things you can do is give yourself a subjective assessment. While you're standing there, is there any pain? If there is, run a pain scale and go 0 is no pain, 10 is the worst pain you ever have. How much pain are you getting just standing doing nothing right now? Now, it may be nothing at all. What about if you walk? Does this give you pain? Measure subjectively and give yourself a pain scale rating. Then try two little things. What's it like to bend backward? What's it like to bend forward? These are gentle tests you can do on yourself. Only do them to the point that you don't radically increase pain, but do them to the point where you start to feel it becomes a bit uncomfortable. Like, for example, if you were to bend forward, one of the ways to do it safely would be to bend the knees a little bit, keep your chin up, and reach to touch the floor if you can. Does that cause pain? And if you comfortably can, push the sitting bones down, round the back slightly, perhaps see if the legs can straighten. And if there's still no discomfort, maybe let the head come down and see if that causes discomfort. Now, carefully when you're coming up, bend the knees, lift the chin, push the hips forward and stand up. Did that cause pain? Now, if it did, how much was it? Give yourself a pain scale. Perhaps you can write it down and measure it. If you feel that the pain increased coming into a position, and then afterwards the pain did not subside back to the resting pain, then it means that your condition is highly irritable. And you don't want to muck around too much with irritable conditions. So in which case, if you're in that situation, don't do anything which is going to test you. Otherwise, you'll just get very irritable physically. But if you're not irritable, if you do a movement and it might hurt a little bit, you come out of it and you feel fine again, then it's okay to play a little bit and find ways to see if you can help your back. Another test I'd like you to make, if possible, is what's it like to bend backwards? So bend the knees slightly and then very, very carefully bend back in a testing, compressive way. The way that will test definitely if your back is not feeling good is to push the sitting bones gently backward and up and the shoulders gently backward and down. Essentially, you're shortening the back of the body. Does that increase pain? Gently come out of the position, and if it does, what level pain? Write on a piece of paper how much pain. Has the pain gone from 0 while standing perhaps to 5 out of 10 pain? Measure it. It's one of the most common measures that you can have of pain in the lower back. How much pain or discomfort comes when you shorten the back by bending backwards. Be careful when you're doing this. Don't overdo it. All right, having done this, what can we do to relieve the pain? I'd like you to consider using either of those 4 testing things as something that you can later, throughout the session we have together, test yourself. The one that's easiest for you, the one that caused the simplest pain, which didn't cause too much pain, which was not too uncomfortable for you to do. As we move through the session, you might consider doing that, i.e., you might just go, I've done an exercise that Simon offered. How does it feel now, just when I'm standing? Subjectively, is it better or worse? Or when I walk a little bit, when I move, how does it feel after doing that particular exercise? Or thirdly, when I bend forward, how does that feel when I bend forward? Does it, feel better having done the exercise? Or gently, does it feel better when I bend backwards, arching the back like that? So you'll use this as a testing procedure. Now, I'm not going to make it too anatomical. I just want to show you the things that I find work best. What makes it better is to breathe into the abdomen. And the reason is because if you touch your back and you hold it and put your fingers into the soft abdomen, if you tighten your pelvic floor and you exhale hard, you'll feel your back becomes tighter. If your back becomes tighter, it's more likely to provoke pain and compress any nerves that are causing the pain. So what you want is the opposite of tightening the pelvic floor, opposite of exhale fully. I want you to think, if possible, of expanding your pelvic floor and breathing into the abdomen to make the abdomen like a baby's belly, like a Buddha belly. So to do that, relax the pelvic floor, drop the sitting bones down, create length in the lower back by gravitationally dropping the hips. Expand the pelvic floor in a way which is like going to the toilet, but not, obviously. And so some people will be able to relax it more than others. It always helps if you've gone to the toilet before doing these sort of exercises. So release the pelvic floor, drop the sitting bones, then breathe into the abdomen like I'm doing. So make the belly soft and expanded. And what you may feel, especially if you've dropped the sitting bones, is the lower back starts to feel a little bit of a gentle stretch. Now, when you do this, it's going to look a bit ugly, it'll look a bit bloated like I am now. Doesn't matter if you're carrying extra fat, doesn't matter if you're bloated, it's going to release the lower back in most levels. So you do this a little bit, and then just having done it for a few moments, which means breathe into the abdomen, breathe into the pelvic floor, then let the air out passively, means the air's not going to go fully out. Then release it and just stand normally. Measure subjectively your pain, either by standing normally, by walking, by maybe bending forward or bending backward. How does it feel? Did that make it better or worse? If something we do makes you feel better, well, that's a good thing perhaps to do more. If it makes it feel worse, it's perhaps something you consider maybe not appropriate for you. If it's something which does not change the feeling in your back, then maybe think about the possibility that it may be good if you repeat it a few times. If it doesn't make it worse, doesn't make it better, sometimes it's repetition that will help. In this course, I'll be outlining the main reasons why people get lower back pain. And I'll be showing you some very simple techniques that can get most people out of lower back pain very simply, easily, with very simple posture, movement, natural breathing, and a little bit of understanding of what to do and how to do it. I'll be going through practices like you're seeing here on the screen now, where I'm just simply tractioning my spine manually, basically lowering my sitting bones, rounding out the lower back and lifting my shoulders up and down. And then learning how to extend the hips, so you open the front of the hips and release the psoas muscle, which is so compressed in most people's daily life because of sitting on chairs. And once you learn how to open it, release it, that can relieve a lot of lower back pain and a lot of dysfunction in terms of internal organ health as well. Notice how in the practice I'm showing you now, my abdomen is quite enlarged. I'm intentionally expanding my abdomen, and this can really help relieve lower back pain. Although it looks funny, it's actually one of the keys to relieving lower back pain. I'll be going through the 5 main dimensions of movement that the spine can do, which include going short to long, forward to backward, side to side, like I'm doing here now, and then also learning how to twist from left and right. I'll also explain how we expand and contract the trunk, which uses the muscles of breathing and also uses muscles which are accessory to the muscles of breathing but which help a lot, such as your psoas muscle, which connects to the front of the hips and also the shoulder blades. And when you learn how to use these muscles, your body can start to expand and contract in a way that moves blood very effectively for energy levels, but also effectively to improve healing. And the idea is that we're not just fixing a mechanical problem here. Most injuries to the body, including lower back pain, are not just mechanical, but also tissue damage. And so when tissue damage is involved, it's important to do two things. One is to enhance blood flow while keeping heart rate very low, and then also to encourage parasympathetic nervous system dominance, or that very calm state. So when you're calm and you are in parasympathetic dominance, your immune system works very well to heal your body. Your reproductive system works very well to heal your body and regenerate cells. And what we need also is blood flow. So what we want is not what most people think, which is to get your heart rate up, but also instead to get blood flow while keeping the heart rate low. And these type of practices turn your whole body into one large heart and allow blood flow to be very effectively moving through the body. So not only does this practice relieve lower back pain, it can relieve a lot of joint pain and really promote healing on a cellular level. And although I give you a set of specific exercises individually and go through them in the course, which is in 10 parts, I also then can take it, like I'm showing you here, and make it into a smooth, dynamic, meditative practice, which can be very good for the mind as well. I really hope you can join me in this course.